In London in the early 18th century, there were some pretty notorious and dangerous gangs like the Mohawks, who used to cut off people's noses and hands and used to sexually assault women. But from what I can tell, they didn't steal anything or stuff like that, so they seemed to just be attacking people for the sake of it. And you also had the Hawkeyites, who used to terrorize the streets from about 1711 until 1714. Now, they used to put hooks in people's mouths and also divide the nostrils. However, some of the reports around these gangs are a little dubious, but they were far from the first street gangs in London. For instance, you had the Damned Crew that dates back to the Tudor period, and they allegedly just got drunk in the streets and attacked passers-by. But during these periods, you had no police force, so the government would rely on watchmen. In 1725, a Swiss traveller described the watchman in England as just being a man carrying a stick with a lantern, and he also said that every hour from 9 o'clock until morning, they used to call out the time and the weather. Well, they would often work in pairs, and every household was required to take part, while the communities would get together and work out some sort of rota, and they would have to carry out this quite dangerous job unpaid, and they date back to at least 1285 or maybe beforehand. I say 1285 because that's when the Statute of Winchester required that all cities lock their gates at night. But in the dark streets of London, the watchmen were accused of falling asleep on the job or often working alongside the criminals, so in richer areas they would often employ professional deputies to keep them safe. Then eventually the Watch Act allowed parishes to collect more taxes in order to pay for more professional deputies, and after the 1780s Gordon riots, more professionals were on the streets of London, and the police force would emerge from this in the 19th century. However, before the introduction of a police force, the government would often pay people for help in catching criminals, and this was a system that was easily exploited. For instance, in 1692, £40 was offered to anyone who can help convict a highwayman, and later on this was raised to £100. So this was an incredibly profitable business, and thief-takers, as they were called, flourished in the early 18th century. And one man in particular, Jonathan Wild, who operated from about 1715 to 1725, became particularly rich. But he operated on both sides of the law because he was a gang leader. So what he would do is have his gang steal things, and when the theft reached the papers, he would return the goods for a reward. So he was called the Thief-Taker General, giving the impression that he was on the right side of the law. And once he was sort of working with the authorities, he began to accuse rival gangs of stealing goods that his gang has stolen, and he would be rewarded for this as well. So in essence, he was stealing things and being rewarded for it, and this is why the system was so easily exploited. But in 1725, he was caught trying to help one of his gang members escape from prison. The whole plot was uncovered and he was executed.